So-called experts, liberation from media groupthink, liberation from Brussels protocol enforcers. What do we have on tonight's Mark Steyn Show? Well, we have a very persuasive take on the cost of living. The Irish question, as answered by ABBA. And more real people who are the victims of that groupthink and for whom our increasingly worthless Parliament has no time. And don't forget, we love your input. You can email me, gbviews@gbnews.uk. You can Twitter me @gbnews. You can leave a crop circle in your back garden and we'll send a drone over. But first, as ever, Tamsin Roberts with the news.
Mark, thank you. Good evening from the GB newsroom. The Queen will not attend the state opening of Parliament tomorrow. Buckingham Palace has confirmed Prince Charles will instead give the agenda-setting speech at Westminster. The Duke of Cambridge will also be in attendance. In a statement released by the Palace, they said Her Majesty continues to experience episodic mobility problems and after speaking with her doctors has reluctantly decided that she will not attend. Sir Keir Starmer has said he will step down as Labour leader if he's fined by police. It's after an investigation was launched into allegations he broke coronavirus rules at a curry and beer gathering in Durham in April last year. Labour's deputy leader Angela Rayner, who was also at the event, has said she will also quit if fined, but insists no rules were broken. Sir Keir says he has always followed the rules.
I had to isolate 6 times during COVID, pulling me away from my work and the things that I love. But I did it because we followed the rules. The idea that I would then casually break those rules is wrong. And frankly, I don't believe those accusing me believe it themselves.
A car has crashed into the Prime Minister's house in South London. A black Vauxhall Astra drove into the front garden of the property in Camberwell at around 1 a.m. this morning. The car, which was finally towed away at around 5 o'clock this evening, damaged hedges and a tree and knocked down a small pillar in front of the house. DUP leader Sir Geoffrey Donaldson says his party will not form an executive until the UK government takes action over the Northern Ireland Protocol. Just a warning, there are some flashing images in this next footage. Sinn Féin's deputy leader, Michelle O'Neill, says it's Boris Johnson and the EU's responsibility to find solutions to the protocol, but that Northern Ireland will not be held to ransom. The would-be First Minister said the British government and the DUP must accept the result of the Assembly election. It's after Sinn Féin became Stormont's largest party, winning a historic 27 seats last Thursday. The Defence Secretary Ben Wallace says President Putin and his inner circle are now mirroring Nazi fascism and tyranny through the war in Ukraine. Russia's president has defended the invasion, claiming he's fighting for the motherland. He made the comment in a speech in Moscow's Red Square during the annual military parade, which celebrates Russia's victory over Nazi Germany in World War II. TV, online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. Now it's over to Mark Steyn.
Thank you, Tamsin. We will have more on the Shinners a little later in the show. The only reason I'm here each night, and indeed why GB News is here, is because we need to widen the bounds of public discourse. My bottom line is that the last 2 years must never happen again, and to ensure that we need to have honest, open debate. Instead, the control freaks that infest the Western world are moving in the opposite direction. They want to shrink and shrivel public discourse even more, so that there's nothing left to talk about except this week's ginger growler. In Washington, there was at least some pushback against Joe Biden's Disinformation Governance Council because it has an almost parodically Orwellian name. In Britain, there is no such widespread pushback against the Online Harms Bill, which is much more of a fluffy bunny, pink unicorn kind of name. but which vastly increases the power of regulators to police every joke you make on Facebook or Twitter, all in the cause of stamping out so-called disinformation. The weasel word disinformation has been used to shut down even the mildest dissent from the official narrative. Here's that colossus of the ITV schedule this morning and their experts just a year ago.
But with dangerous fake news spreading about what the vaccine contains or potential side effects, not everyone is taking up the offer of immunisation.
But we're here to tell you it is safe.
It is approved by...
Oh, a dangerous fake news spreading. If you're more sentient than an earthworm, it should be possible to acknowledge that more than one thing can be true at the same time. Yes, this Wuhan virus is not a good thing. That Chairman Xi in the Politburo shouldn't have released it on the entire world. And at the same time, you shouldn't be jabbing people who have no medical need of a jab. Because for a lot of people, it's turned out to be not in the least bit safe, whatever This Morning and Philip Schofield and the rest of the gang may say about it. The vaccines have, in significant cases, killed and in many others ruined the lives of thousands and thousands of hitherto perfectly healthy people. A new paper based on UK Health Security Agency numbers paints a strange picture if all you know of the last 2 years is based on the hideous media groupthink. The underlying numbers here suggest that for all health problems, heart attack, appendix, embarrassing boils on your posterior, whatever, the vaccinated are being admitted to hospital at a significantly higher rate than the unvaccinated, up to 5 times. In some cases, not just the triple vaccinated numbers, which we reported on a couple of weeks back, but the double vaccinated, as they have also found in New Zealand and elsewhere. These are numbers, of course. These are real people, every one of them. They're bona fide Englishmen, Scotsmen, Welshmen. And for you Sinn Féin supporters delirious about Thursday's results, well, the victims include both Irish Republicans and Irish loyalists. It's an entirely non-sectarian thing, this vaccine issue. We spoke to 2 ladies last week, Vicky Spitt and Charlotte Wright, both widowed in their 30s by the vaccine. When Christopher Chope tries to raise the subject in the Commons, you could hunt buffalo on the vast empty prairies stretching to the distant horizon of an abandoned parliament. Yeah, look at that. Oh, but wait. There's this week's Ginger Growler, and suddenly the joint is packed and everyone's there. Let's just run that again. Dead constituents. Terrific. Oh, another Ginger Growler. Here comes the 3rd Ginger Growler this week. And the place is packed. I don't know how it's possible to hear Vicky and Charlotte's stories and not to be A, moved, and B, angry at what's happening. But some clever clogs on Twitter assured us after Thursday's show that there are only 33 people dead from the vaccine. OK, Chumpy, take your socks off and start counting, because we're going to be telling their stories on this show. What about the groupthink media? Here are a couple of big shots on whatever it's called this week. Is it Talk Radio? Do you think it's worth mentioning the Pfizer documents and there's no way pregnant women should have taken it? Mike Graham says, not really. Here's Kevin O'Sullivan. Vaccine stories seem like yesterday's news. Oh, really? I'm so bored. I'm bored of hearing about dead Englishmen, dead Scotsmen, dead Ulstermen. It's not yesterday's news when the state is still demanding you get your kids jabbed and you get your 4th, 5th, 6th jab for you as a condition of being able to travel and lie on a nude beach at Saint-Tropez next to Andrew Neil. What's Andrew Neil's line? So is he still on that summer sabbatical? He's supposed to be back here in a couple of weeks, is he? Let's see what Andrew Neil's line is in the Daily Mail. It's time to punish Britain's 5 million vaccine refuseniks. They put us all at risk, so why shouldn't we curb some of their freedoms? That's not actually true. none of it. Right now, the unvaccinated are more at risk from the vaccinated. But Andrew, to be fair, has got plenty of company. Here's Anne McElvoy in the Evening Standard. The unvaccinated have become a lethal liability we can ill afford. No. This kind of media groupthink has proved lethal. Millions and millions of people who had no medical need for these shots got them anyway because they followed Andrew Neil and Anne McElvoy and Philip Schofield and the rest of the gang. And for many, it hasn't worked out too well. Do you remember the last big pharmaceutical scandal, thalidomide? About 1,000 dead within a 3-year period, 1958, 1961, thereabouts. With these vaccines, in little more than a year, we're already up, according to the yellow card reporting system, over 2,000 dead. And our media big shorts yawn and write it off as yesterday's news. Stephen Ward was a healthy 57-year-old. Then he died last year. 3 months ago, they got a coroner's certificate. Cause of death, complications of medical vaccination. As you can see on that coroner's certificate, the cause of death is explicitly listed, third line down, 1C, as the AstraZeneca vaccine. We wrote to AstraZeneca on Thursday, and we're still waiting for a response from AstraZeneca. It's been 5 days. We don't need another Ofcom investigation into me, so I'd like to get both sides of the story to put to you. But I'm starting to get the impression that AstraZeneca don't want to talk about this. And indeed, we've invited the health secretary to come on the show and talk about this. But he's yet to respond too. Stephen Ward's son posted that coroner's certificate on Twitter a week ago, and Twitter promptly concealed it as, quote, sensitive. So it's not just that the vaccine killed his dad, but that the truth about his father's fate is being throttled by the control freaks of the internet. Yesterday's news, as our media superstars say, not on GB News. Stephen Ward's son, Joe, joins me now. Joe, your dad had already had the COVID, so he had natural immunity. So in theory, he didn't need to take this shot at all because he'd already had the COVID and recovered.
He had COVID in November 2020, and as a result of that, he ended up giving plasma to donate to help people who were suffering from COVID.
Yeah, how are you holding up over this? Because you must have been staggered. Your father was 57 and in perfectly good health, and then suddenly he takes ill after the COVID shot. He has to go to hospital, and that's the last you see of him.
Yeah, he did the right thing, and now we have to suffer for it.
Do you think the way the vaccine was sold to people like your father, that it was the responsible thing to do, that even if a chap in his 50s doesn't really need these vaccines under any reasonable consideration of cost-benefit analysis, but we were all told to do it for the good of everybody else. Your father was a good citizen, and so when government ministers are saying to him that you need to do this, even though you don't need it for yourself, he thought presumably it was all safe and fine to take it.
Well, yeah, we were told it was safe, effective, it would save lives, and that was the main reason he did it, to protect others. He didn't feel he needed it himself, but he thought it was his duty to the public, friends, family, people he came into contact with every day. He felt like he should do the right thing.
You've reported this on the yellow card system to the government, haven't you?
Yeah,
your father's death.
The hospital did that for us.
Have you heard anything back from the government?
Nothing. No, the only thing we've heard back is from our lead haematologist at the hospital, that he was featured in the British Medical Journal and one of the case studies.
So basically, the government has created a system for people to report vaccine deaths, and you basically report it into the void. You know, you might as well be leaving it on an answering machine in Rock Hall or wherever, and you never hear a word after it.
Yeah, exactly that. I was expecting phone calls. Me and my brother both were, to see if there was a genetic link, if we could find a way to, you know, find out why this happened, but nothing's ever come to us now.
How do you feel when you see government ministers who are still insisting that, for example, we have to jab children? We have to jab all the way down to 2, 3, 4-year-olds who have no need to get this jab. And that if you've already been jabbed, no matter how many times you've already been jabbed, one more jab needs to do the trick. I mean, are you slightly surprised? They're basically saying the same thing to us here in May of 2022 that they were saying a year and a half ago. Basically, everyone has to get this. They haven't, notwithstanding your father's death, they haven't changed their view.
Yeah, well, we were told obviously that it was safe, effective, and at the time we would do it. We'd never know here down the line you'd need more jabs, but they told us this would be the way out. They added the COVID-19 to the vaccine damage payment scheme to sort of give us a bit of confidence, and if they're not looking after the people, obviously the public hesitancy is going to rise. The main reason they added the VDPS was to give you the confidence that it would be safe and you'd be looked after, but currently we're getting no support at all.
You and other people, there are a lot of them out there. I heard from a lot of them over the last few days. You've started a group and indeed launched a website for those who are bereaved and injured by the COVID vaccines. What's the website address, Joe?
It's viduk.co.uk. So vaccine injured and bereaved UK.co.uk.
Okay, we'll repeat that later in the show. Thank you very much for being with us, Joe. Also with us today is Kelly Hatfield. Kelly also lost her father to the vaccine. Again, your father was a fit man, Kelly. He used to walk, I think, 4 miles a day. He had no reason to believe that these vaccines were not as they were advertised. And in your case, unfortunately, the minute he was in the care of the NHS, because nobody's allowed to visit people in hospital under the COVID regime, he had no one to advocate for him there.
I'm struggling to hear, so I'll talk and you can stop me. Dad had the jab on the 4th of Feb. Felt unwell about 9-10 days after. Walked into the ambulance on day 11, and that was the last we saw of my father. We were ringing the hospital constantly. Whatever was happening to Dad, he started getting confused and could no longer use his phone. On the day that he died, me and my mum were outside the ward door when we heard the emergency sound go off. And we didn't realise that my dad was dying on the other side of the door. Mum and Dad celebrated getting the vaccine. They thought they were doing the right thing for their country. They rolled up their sleeve. That night, you know, they rang us to say they'd had it done and now they were safe. It's been a long process. The consultant at the hospital has been brilliant. The pathology team have been excellent, and the senior coroner in Leicester and her team, I can't praise them enough. They've held my hand all the way through this and walked us through it as a family. The verdict was adverse reaction to the COVID-19 vaccination.
How do you feel about what has happened? Because the government basically said, and you know, all the media big shots said, this vaccine will prevent you from getting the COVID. It's 95% effective. People weren't talking about side effects, and even when side effects came up, people were told, well, this is just 1 in a million, and it isn't. It's much more than 1 in a million.
I still can't hear you, but when Dad had the vaccine, we thought we were doing the right thing. And when he died, I didn't go public, basically because I didn't want to put other people off, because everyone thinks that they're doing the right thing. So we have kept quiet up until sort of we've gone over the year anniversary. But now we're reaching out for help. We need help. These families have been left with no financial support, medical support, mental support. I've had to find my own bereavement counsellor. My mum, she's now on half the income that she used to be on. You know, all the families that have lost someone have lost a breadwinner for the family, and no one has reached out to us. And I think it's shocking what the government have been allowed to do. They should have reached out to all of us. At Dad's inquest, AstraZeneca legal and the government legal team were there. They saw, they heard, they knew the verdict. Why has no one reached out to us?
That's very interesting. You say that AstraZeneca's legal team were at the inquest.
They were there via like a Zoom, like a team link. So they listened to the whole inquest.
Have you heard from AstraZeneca at all?
I can't hear the question, but they weren't allowed to speak as it was a documented inquest that we went through, because the conclusion was that it was an adverse reaction to the COVID-19 vaccination. No one was allowed to speak during the inquest. All the information was submitted well before.
Okay, thank you very much, Kelly. I have no idea why we've got all these terrible audio problems, but obviously it makes it very difficult. But I do thank you for that, and that is interesting to me that AstraZeneca are at least taking the position that this is serious enough that they have to attend, at least via Zoom or whatever, each of these inquests. I don't understand, just to be clear on this, we asked AstraZeneca for their response. They haven't given it. Anytime anybody from AstraZeneca wants to come on and talk about all the people whom coroners have determined have died because they took the AstraZeneca vaccine, people who didn't actually need to take it. That's the thing, you see, if you have a non-medical approach to pharmaceuticals, which is basically what this government did. I'm not picking out this government, it doesn't really matter whether you've got a left-wing government or a right-wing government, because governments all over the Western world, with the exception of Sweden, all did the same thing. Doesn't matter whether you're in the United States or Canada or Australia or Europe, they all did the right thing. And the trouble is, it sounds great from AstraZeneca's point of view. Hey, great, we've got this vaccine thing, and it's nothing to do with how many people need the vaccine. We're going to give it to everybody on the planet. It's a one-size-fits-all deal. And now people are dying, and AstraZeneca have their legal team sitting in on coroners' inquests. But AstraZeneca, funnily enough, doesn't actually want to come on the telly and talk about this stuff. By the way, the website, if you are injured by the vaccine, or if you are bereaved by the vaccine, you've lost a husband like the two young ladies we had on Thursday's shows, like Vicky and Charlotte, in their 30s and widowed by the vaccine, or if you've just taken the vaccine and are stuck with some chronic illness you can't crawl out from under, the website is vibuk.co.uk. VIB UK stands for Vaccine Injured and Bereaved UK. vibuk.co.uk. This is a disgrace, and it's made worse by the media groupthink. And the reason this is relevant to the online harms bill is because they want to clamp down public discussion even more. If you don't think the last 2 years of disinformation, and that means that all you're ever going to hear about is this, oh, there's a ginger growler. Oh, yes, I'm going after that. Oh, sorry, I'd love to talk about dead people who are dead because of the vaccine, but there's a ginger growler I've got to pursue. Another ginger growler out there in the woods. That should do it for next 2 weeks' news bulletins. Up next, your take. GBView, and if you're not concerned about this, you ought to be. As I said, it's already way bigger than thalidomide. Your take, GBViews at gbnews.uk. You can tweet me at gbnews. Laura Perrins on the cost of living crisis, and have the Shinners total the union. Kate Hoey is here.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's 2 questions, actually. That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Just an update on what we were talking about before the break. On Thursday, I interviewed Charlotte Wright, who lost her husband. She's got 2 young kids, one 7 and one 1 year old, I think it is. And she's widowed and they're orphaned. She's 32. She lost her husband to the COVID vaccine. And we talked about it. We talked about what happened to her husband. She put the interview on Instagram, and Instagram, you evil, psychotic monsters, have just removed it on the grounds, what does it say here? Your post goes against our guidelines on harmful false information. What is the false information? Are you denying her widowhood, you sick Instagram freaks? As I've said, we're doing exactly the opposite of what we should be doing. No Conservative government, even one as feeble and attenuated in its conservatism as Mr. Johnson's ministry, should be actually passing this online harms bill. Can we get Nadine Dorries on the phone, or is she not picking up, just like the health minister? We need to get her in there, because they've now put Ofcom in charge. Ofcom regulates me, which is likely why I'll be gone by the end of the month. But they're now also being given powers over the internet. And the first person they've hired is some Facebook commissar. Facebook is the most censorious institution in the world, just about. I mean, they may have some competition from Kim Jong-un and one or two other fellows, but basically they're the most censorious institution in the free world, and that's who Ofcom has just hired to police internet commentary. So this thing, oh, your post has been removed because your widowhood is disinformation. Who do these people think they are? And who does Nadine Dorries think she is to decide that we need to give this kind of crap the imprimatur of Her Majesty's government? Oh, I tell you what, while we're booking interviews we'll never get, what about Michael Grade? Michael Grade is now, you remember him? He used to run the BBC and ITV and whatnot. He's now the chairman of Ofcom. I'd like to know how he justifies hiring partisan Facebook operatives to police the internet. They're going to make it worse. They want you just talking about ginger growler. Oh, there's another ginger growler bounding through the woods. Ginger growlers all the way down. Ginger growlers are going to lead you right off the cliff, and boom, it's over. Okay, let's get to your... Oh, wait a minute. Oh, here's... Do we have any... Oh, yeah, here we are. Couldn't find the bit of paper. Dean says, our very own Ministry of Truth. Yes, please. Yeah, it actually is the Ministry of Truth. It's the ministry, and they've been doing a pilot program with Facebook and Twitter and all the rest, and now the government of the United Kingdom has licensed Ofcom to become a real Ministry of Truth. Paolo says he doesn't want the government protecting him from disinformation, not when the government is the primary purveyor of disinformation. Yeah, what's the biggest disinformation of the last couple of years? It's, these vaccines are 95% effective and they're completely safe. A Twitter user says the government is disinformation incarnate. Ian says he doesn't want the government protecting us from disinformation, but he wants them to stop putting it out constantly. Twitter says, a Twitter person says, the hideous group think the so-called scientists, are they guilty of disinformation? The truth will prevail. I hope the truth will prevail. I hope the truth will prevail. There's something going on here, you know, otherwise these hotshot legal teams from AstraZeneca wouldn't be attending coroner's inquests for people dead of the vaccine. They think they've got a case to answer. Well, we had 2 years of lockdown, and now we've got a cost of living crisis. Gee, I never saw that come. I wonder if could they possibly be connected? Laura Perrins has an interesting column up at the Conservative Woman, pointing out that thanks to huge electric bills and petrol prices and rising food costs, we're now being forced to do what the net zero global warmongers want us to do anyway. Using the washing machine and the dryer drive up your energy bills. Well, why not take your laundry down to the river or the Grand Union Canal, as the case may be, and then beat it dry on the rocks for 2 hours, like environmentally responsible village women in upcountry Sudan do. Laura Perrins joins me now. Laura, it's always great to see you. And in this case, you're right that mysteriously all the things we need to do to alleviate the cost of living crisis is the stuff that the net zero Greta Thunberg people want us to do anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's an amazing coincidence that much of what they wanted us to do, we now have to do because we can't afford, to keep eating meat. And so people are cutting back on meat. They've been telling us to stop eating meat for ages now. Obviously, people are flying, yes, taking less holidays abroad because we all know flying is completely evil. You can't drive your car as much. They're practically boasting that we drive fewer miles now than ever before. And yes, a big bugbear of mine is that they're coming after your tumble dryer. I mean, you can't get through a single newspaper now without somebody telling you to stop using your tumble dryer. And I mean, that perhaps is doable if you've got access to a garden and the weather is as it has been recently in London. But, if you've got 2 kids and you're living in a flat, that's quite difficult to do. That will make your flat quite damp, which is actually a health hazard to your children. So I just think, you know, save me the crocodile tears from Boris Johnson in terms of, oh no, we really feel for the people and the cost of living crisis. You know, you can't fill your car with petrol or diesel. When Boris Johnson, in his 10-point green plan, has said you will not be able to purchase a petrol or diesel car from 2030 onwards. That was just one of the points in his green revolution. So, I mean, as I said, I just think it's crocodile tears, and they've essentially said you can't even buy a car that's petrol or diesel in less than 8 years' time. So do you really think they're that upset about the fact that you can't fill up your current car now because it's so expensive?
Yeah, that's actually an excellent point, Laura, because this whole cost of living thing only really matters to democratic governments if they think their purpose is to enable their citizens to lead lives to the fullest potential. If they actually think their purpose is to diminish those lives, to bring them into compliance with net zero and the Green New Deal and Greta Thunberg stuff, then obviously they don't want to make petrol affordable, they don't want to make beef affordable, and they don't want to make running your tumble dryer affordable.
Yeah, I mean, we already pay. I think there's you can, you know, viewers can Google it themselves, but you pay like something like 15% currently on a gas bill through environmental and social costs. And electricity bills, it's 25.5%. And I mean, there's loads of stuff that goes on. That goes on renewable obligations, contracts for different feed-in tariffs, green gas levy. You know, when Greta Thunberg came over here a couple of years ago, I mean, the politicians were falling over themselves to take policy advice from a teenager who doesn't even live here. And her policy advice essentially was, we're all going to die unless, you know, we go carbon neutral, carbon zero as quickly as possible. And very few politicians didn't tell you what that would actually involve. Well, we're seeing now what that involves. And it means a much, much higher cost of living. I mean, they could reduce that. They could reduce a lot of this green levies tomorrow if they really, really cared about the fact that people are now have to go to bed early because they can't afford to heat their homes. But you never hear any of that, do you? Because then the mainstream media will get on their backs about you know, the fire gods, the sun god will get angry if you get rid of the green levy. So, I mean, I'm sorry, if you happen to freeze to death in winter, well, you know, tough luck. That's your problem. I mean, you know, Greta will get angry. She'll get really angry if you start using your tumble dryer. So you might as well get rid of it, and don't bother washing your clothes either. I mean, it's as I said, to me, it's all crocodile tears, and they've been telling you for the last 5 to 10 years that this is what they've actually wanted for you. Don't drive your car. Stop eating meat. Stop heating your home.
Yeah, in fairness to that little Swedish schoolgirl, it isn't just her. We had the Prince of Wales, who will be delivering the speech from the throne at Parliament tomorrow, God help us all. But he said a couple of years ago that we have to get rid of this terrible... This is a man who's never drawn his own curtains. And he told the rest of us a couple of years ago that we had to get rid of this dreadful... He was giving a speech somewhere. He said we have to get rid of this dreadful consumerism. You know, and then he finished the speech and got into his car. He got into his car and was driven to his other palace and thinks he's done a great thing for the environment. All these people seem to presume they'll still be private jetting it around to Davos and all the rest of it. And it's just the masses. It's okay for them. They need the private planes because they're saving the planet. The rest of us can't take 2 weeks in Mykonos.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I mean, they will be okay. You know, the Bill Gates of this world and Prince Charles, they will be able to jet set it around the place. But if you want to take 2 weeks with your family down in Ibiza, well, we're going to slap on another massive, you know, green levy on that. Anyway, you won't be able to afford to go by the time they've finished with, you know, the filling the planes with their extortionate fuel. I mean, there's loads of things you could argue about. I mean, the fact that People are going to start substituting, I think, as well, very poor quality food, which will worsen people's diet, which actually I think also can increase the obesity rate, which has gone through the roof anyway because of their genius lockdown rules. And we know obesity was a massive risk factor of dying from COVID for the poor people who did die of it. Yep. So again, they're just making a situation even worse. Actually, cutting back on your meat, I would just say this is not a good idea, and certainly substituting it for carbohydrates or sugar is going to make the situation even worse. Everything they do, anything that they touch, the government touches, from people's diets to vaccines to how are we going to handle the coronavirus to the cost of living, they make worse. They actually make worse. If they just took a day off work or had one of the strikes that they sometimes happens in the United States, things would probably be fine, or go and argue about Beardgate or Currygate or whatever. But just stop taxing us and leave my tumble dryer alone, please.
Yeah, but you make the brilliant point in your column, which I think comes across, is that their concern for us is not good faith. What is it the computer guys say? You can't afford to eat, you can't afford to heat, and the computer guys say, I think that's not a bug, it's a feature. And that is increasingly what it's looking like from governments across the Western world. Thank you very much, Laura. It's a fantastic column. You can check it out at The Conservative Woman. Coming up, Stump the Steyn, GB Views at GB News. Ask Me Anything. Plus, in Belfast, the Queen's First Minister is going to be a member of Sinn Féin. How'd that happen? Kate Hoey is here. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's two questions, actually. That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Here's how the Daily Star reacted to Thursday's election results from Northern Ireland. Let's have a look at this. The Shinners take it all. Oh, wait, no, my mistake. That was the last election south of the border 2 years ago. Maybe under the protocol they can just recycle the same headline north and south every couple of years. The Shinners take it all, the union standing small. And indeed Dublin's mainstream part is standing small. But is ABBA really the best guide to the Irish question? We prefer Baroness Hoey. Kate, we have heard now a whole weekend's worth of reactions to what happened in Northern Ireland on last Thursday's elections. What's your take on it?
Well, you would think by reading some of the headlines in the UK papers and in other papers that, you know, the kind of United Ireland was coming tomorrow and that the whole of Northern Ireland had voted nationalist. The reality was, of course, that Sinn Féin came out with the same number of elected assembly members as the last elections, 27. The DUP, the Democratic Unionist Party, lost 2 seats, and some of the more liberal unionists and liberal Social Democratic Labour Party, the SDLP, the other Liberal Nationalist Party, kind of switched to the alliance. So we've ended up with a situation where officially, because of the Belfast Agreement, the way the electoral system works in Northern Ireland, and I have to say, you know, anyone who sat through or looked at the count would find it extremely difficult to understand, because it's a very different system of proportional representation than we have in the rest of the United Kingdom. But that means that the First Minister, official title of the First Minister, would be the Sinn Féin leader. But of course, what the papers didn't say, unless you went into great detail, was that it makes no difference in terms of power. The Deputy First Minister has exactly the same power as the First Minister. But clearly, you know, losing the sort of title of First Minister was something that was upsetting to many people within the pro-union community. But that was the reality of the election, and there are all sorts of reasons why Sinn Féin didn't do, didn't do better, actually, because there were projections that they were going to do more, and indeed that the DUP only lost 2 seats because there were projections that they were going to lose more. So we've ended up with a situation where, frankly, not an awful lot has changed other than the growth in the alliance, which I think is something that needs to be really looked at from all, you know, from both sides, from Sinn Féin and from the DUP. And also, of course, now the reality is there's not going to be a government for the Sinn Féin leader to be First Minister of until we get rid of the protocol.
Let me put a theory of mine to you, because you're right about the Byzantine electoral system, which is true, I think, not just in Northern Ireland, but to a slightly lesser degree down south as well. And that if Sinn Féin become the largest party in North and South, then I would say that actually puts off further any prospect of a united Ireland, because I don't think in the North or the South there is a majority that wants a united Ireland that is likely to come under Sinn Féin, which is the only cross-border party in these islands.
Yes, Sinn Féin has played what they think is quite a clever game of working very hard in both Northern Ireland and in the Republic of Ireland, and doing very well in both. And of course there is real concern, I think, amongst the 2 other main parties in the Republic of Ireland that Sinn Féin will actually win at their next general election. But, you know, there are some people who say, well, you know, the sooner Sinn Féin gets into government in the Republic of Ireland, the sooner people will realise just what kind of party they are, and the sooner they'll be out. So, you know, I think in terms of Northern Ireland, what needs to happen now is, you know, the union is very, very important to the majority of people. And I think it is worth, you know, viewers and listeners realising that even though Sinn Féin have 27 MLAs, as I said, in terms of the actual percentage of votes across the whole of Northern Ireland, they have not gone up in percentage terms any more than they did back in 1998 in the very first election. So, you know, the idea that the media, and particularly some of the media who've always taken a kind of, you know, love-in with Sinn Féin, despite the horrific things that happened in the past and their links with the IRA, you know, wanted to project this as being a huge, huge victory for nationalism. But, you know, the reality is, if there was a border poll tomorrow, there would be a big, big majority for Northern Ireland people to stay in the United Kingdom, because the union is so strong and it gives so much more to Northern Ireland than going into the United Ireland would. And people understand that, even if they didn't come out and vote, you know, for the unionist parties. There are a lot of very quiet people who don't raise their heads and don't say, that they actually don't really want a united Ireland. They can have their Irish identity in all sorts of ways, but to actually give up your British citizenship and become part of United Ireland is something very different.
What do you make then, given what you've just said about the IRA and something which is certainly well within living memory, of the Scottish Nationalist Party, the governing party in the other kingdom that's part of this union, saying that they're sort of playing footsie with Sinn Féin? Well, what's that about?
Well, I think there's no doubt about it. The links between Scotland and Northern Ireland are very substantial. And, I've always said that people in England or who care about the United Kingdom in England, who don't actually understand much about Northern Ireland, but do care very strongly about Scotland leaving the Union, should realise that the two are very linked together. There's no doubt about it that if Northern Ireland was to ever, and I don't think it'll happen in my day, ever have a vote for United Ireland, that would absolutely affect what's happening in Scotland. And similarly, if Scotland votes to leave the Union, I think that would affect Northern Ireland as well. So I think the Scottish Nationalists, they sent their congratulations, as indeed, I have to say, the Labour Party did in England, that they sent their congratulations to Sinn Féin. I don't think they sent congratulations when the DUP were the biggest party, so I'm not sure what that tells us. But no. I do believe that, the reality is Scotland and Northern Ireland are linked. And that's why people, and that's why the government, that's why Boris Johnson should sit up and actually realise, all the protocol has done is begin to, really eat away at the Union. And if he cares about the United Kingdom, and anyone who cares about the United Kingdom, no matter what they think about Northern Ireland, should be taking this seriously, that they need to get the protocol solved. And there will not be, they have to choose. Yep. They have to choose. They want the protocol or they want a devolved government. Simple as that. And the DUP said, if we are standing on an election promise that we will not go into government, we will not form an executive until the protocol has gone. And after all, let's also remember, Sinn Féin walked out of Northern Ireland government and took Northern Ireland with no government for 3 years. And yet we've now got the sort of hypocrisy of Sinn Féin sort of having a go at the DUP for daring to think that they might not go in and form a government.
No, that's a very good point. I wonder, though, I mean, I agree with you that there would not be a vote. The vote would be quite strongly to stay in the union. But conventional unionism has taken a hit. And I wondered what you make of the Alliance. The Alliance, when they were born, said we're not fanatically loyalist and we're not fanatically Republican, but they've become sort of fanatically pro-EU. And I wonder if that is if they supplant conventional unionism. So you have crazy Marxist bomb-throwing Sinn Féin types on the one hand, and you have these pro-EU guys on the other hand. What does that leave for real unionism?
Well, I think that's why everyone within the unionist community will be wanting to really genuinely sit down and discuss where we go from here, what the future should be like, whether, there are some people calling for one pro-union unionist party. I think the problem with that is that there is a very liberal wing, like all political parties, there are differences within the party. And unionism, the three parties together, the TUV, who did extremely well and took away some votes from, the DUP, but really were holding the DUP's feet to the fire over the protocol. There would be so many big differences that there would be a lot of liberal unionists who would not want to vote for one unionist party. So I do think we're not going to see many changes there. But, you're right, the Alliance Party, what the Alliance Party has done is managed to kind of, particularly with younger people, play that idea that, all these sort of old-fashioned people talking about identity and about, the union and all of that, what you're really interested in isn't it your future in the health service and all of that kind of thing, which is true. But, if you believe in the union, then I don't think the Alliance can just sit on the fence forever. and that will come back to haunt them eventually. They're going to have to get off that fence and see what happens. But in the meantime, Northern Ireland is in for some instability, even more instability, until Boris Johnson acts. And we'll see in the Queen's speech tomorrow.
Okay.
The promises have been made so many times, and even
we're going to have to leave it. We're going to have to leave it there, Kate. We'll look to see what's in the throne speech tomorrow. Here is the one and only Dan Wootton to massage your Monday as no one else can. Dan.
Yes, Mark, I've finally made it onto the Steyn show. Life is complete. Actually, there's a couple of things, Mark, you're going to be really interested in tonight. Did you see Jeremy Hunt, talked about as a future Tory party leader, praising China's zero COVID policy? So Neil Oliver is here for a big expose on that. And Mark, I was watching your brilliant digest talking about this morning. Well, Bev Turner is here to examine a bit about why ITV went so mad against the COVID vaccination truth.
All sounds great, Dan. And tell Neil to tear that Hunt guy a new one from me. We'll see you. We'll see you after the Dad's up after the weather.
Hello again, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. It's been a wet start to the week for Scotland and Northern Ireland. That rain is now sinking south, sky clearing behind it, but with further showers expected over the next few days for northern parts of the UK in particular. Low pressure towards the northwest is sending a couple of weather fronts southwards across the UK. Those weather fronts, as they bump into high pressure further east, weaken, but nevertheless still a cloudy night to come for much of England and Wales. Increasingly damp conditions for northern England, the Midlands, Wales as well, that rain reaching the southwest by dawn. Otherwise, Scotland and Northern Ireland see the rain clearing and clear spells, but with showers replacing it. Those showers particularly lively for the west of Scotland, along with a blustery breeze. 8 Celsius in Glasgow first thing, 14 for London, but a damp start for London as the cloud and rain slowly clear here. By lunchtime, most places see brighter skies, and there'll be some decent sunny spells in the south with highs